Hi, my name's Kat and today we're going to show you how to set up your own no-dig veggie patch using materials that you've hopefully got at home or you can find for free around your neighbourhood. No-dig veggie patches are fantastic if you're starting with soil which is very compacted or infertile. They are no-dig, but they are a lot of hauling of materials, so they are still some work. You could put a no-dig veggie patch directly over the top of weeds and some grasses, but if you're starting with grasses that are rhizomatous, like this grass I'm holding here, it is best to deal with this grass first because it's very strong and it can still come through the layers. To deal with this grass without herbicide, you can dig it out, sometimes with friends and having a bit of a party while you're doing it, or alternatively you can solarize that lawn using some black plastic which you'll weigh down and leave in place for a few months over summer. Now this ground is seriously compacted, so what we're going to do is loosen it gently with a garden fork before we start. Now if it's really difficult to get your fork in, you don't have to go the whole way. Just try and get the fork in a little bit first and then loosen it up. Once you've decompacted the ground, the next step is a little counterintuitive. We're actually going to fertilise that weedy space, and the reason we're going to do this is to stimulate any weeds or grasses that remain into growth, and hopefully they will start to grow and then come up against that sheet mulching ceiling that we'll create in the next step. By smothering these weeds with the sheet mulch, we will hopefully exhaust them so that they won't be able to come through into the veggie patch. You can use anything that's rich in nitrogen for this step. Today I'm using some chook manure from our place, but you could also use some blood and bone or some bagged organic fertiliser if you don't have access to that. I'm just adding a handful per square metre of the chook manure. The first step in your no-dig veggie patch is to do something called sheet mulching. We're going to use newspaper or cardboard to smother any weeds on the ground and stop them from coming into the veggie bed. We're going to soak the newspaper and the cardboard first, and what this will do is help it to lock together as a single layer which will stop the weeds from coming through. Now you can use cardboard for sheet mulching, but I much prefer to use newspaper when I can, because newspaper when it's wet locks together like paper mache into a tight layer which really does stop the weeds from coming through. When you're putting down the newspaper, we want to make sure that it's at least 10 sheets thick so that the weeds can't break through it. And it's also really important that we overlap it heavily so that there's no gaps where the weeds can poke through. So I'm going at least 10 sheets thick, and I'm going at least 10 centimetres overlapped on all sides. At this stage you could put down some edging. It's not compulsory, but it can help to keep the layers together while they're breaking down. The first layer that we're going to put down is a nitrogen-rich layer. This is things that are really rich in nutrients. Today we've got some of our own pruned leaves that we're going to be using, as well as some aged cow manure as well. You could also use grass clippings in place of the cow manure. So we're going to put down a layer that is about 10 centimetres thick. Now making a no-dig garden is a lot like making a compost heap. You're just making it flat out in a layer on the ground. So when we've added a layer that's rich in nitrogen, the next thing we want to do is a layer that's rich in carbon. And today we've got some autumn leaves, but you could also do straw for this layer if you prefer. Once again, I'm going to add a layer of about 10 centimetres over the top. At this stage we'll add another layer of nitrogen-rich materials. Now I'm going to use some aged cow manure here, but you can actually use fresh cow manure or horse or sheep manure at this stage. This is a really good use for it because it will have a chance to age and break down before the veggies grow into it. If you don't have access to any of those manures, grass clippings will work really well for this step. It is a good idea to use something along those lines though, so that it can absorb and hold moisture, which will help the rest of the leaves and the other layers to break down. So just keep building up those layers of carbon and nitrogen until you reach about 30 centimetres high. This will look really strange, but it is all going to collapse and break down, so you don't need to worry about it being too high at this stage. Now just make sure you finish up with a layer of something rich in carbon. This is also going to be your mulch. One of the cool things about a no-dig veggie patch is you can actually plant straight into it, even though it looks very fresh. So all we need to do is break a hole through the layers, right down to the newspaper. If you like, you can poke a tiny hole so that the plant roots can get through to that original soil quite quickly. Then when we've made this hole, we can fill it up. Now try and use your own soil for this, but you can use other things like potting mix if you need to, or compost. You make a little pocket and fill it up with your planting mix. And then what we'll do is plant directly into that hole. So today I'm planting some kale seedlings. And we're just going to pop them in and we're done. So what will happen here over time is as these little seedlings grow, these layers will break down like normal compost, and the seedling will grow and actually start getting into that original soil layer. But with this beautiful thick layer of compost happening on the top, it's going to really open up that soil and really change its condition in a matter of months into something that's healthy and fertile. We're nearly done here. The very last step is to just water your garden carefully, and remembering that it is breaking down like a compost heap, you will need to make sure the layers stay moist to make sure they break down properly. So thanks very much for watching, and for more great sustainable gardening tips, head to www.mysmartgarden.org.au.